All right. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us on Real Talk with Joe. How local government's coming alongside of people, of their residents in Henrico County specifically, but not even uh, specific just to Henrico, but hey, what can people really expect from their local leadership? As we all know, the realities of COVID-19. I'm so grateful for my good friend, Anthony Romanello. And Anthony, could you just introduce yourself? Tell us about who you are, what do you do, and then we'll go from there. And would you, if you don't mind, for those of us that maybe are not as familiar with Henrico County, would you brag on your county? Would you talk to the viewers about what demographics look like, what the people group look like, what business looks like? Just as you share about yourself, share about your community that you get to serve.
Yeah, happy to do that, Joe. Thanks for having me today, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Anthony Romanello. I'm the executive director of the Henrico Economic Development Authority, which is an independent unit of government, but we work hand in glove with Henrico County government. We are the economic development arm of the county, and our job is to grow the economy of the county. So we work with all the county agencies and with our local businesses, about 25,000 of them in Henrico, to help grow the county's economy. I've got an office of 9 people. We're physically located right on Parham Road across the street from the government center, but just like probably most of the audience, we've got folks that are working from all over since the virus hit. And the good news is, with the work that we do, you can do it from most anywhere as long as you've got Wi-Fi. Our county is about 330,000 people. Henrico is, I think, one of Virginia's preeminent counties. Just a very strong local government, professionally managed, has a county manager form of government for over 90 years, which is really a hallmark of good quality, very strong, politically very stable board that is very pro-business, very pro-community, does a really good job of taking care of our community and our businesses. Pre-coronavirus, I don't know what the numbers look like today, but pre-coronavirus, Henrico's gross county product was about $25 billion, or about 1/20th of Virginia. So about one out of every $20 that is spent in the Commonwealth is spent here in Henrico. We have the highest per capita numbers for retail sales, and then we have the second highest number of jobs in Virginia behind Fairfax. I think we'll lose that number 2 designation to Arlington, which is number 3, but they just got the Amazon HQ too, so they will probably in the near term replace us at number 2. But I'm confident in the long run that Henrico will get that designation back as we continue to grow the economy. Our economy is really diverse, which is great. We don't have any one industry that we're very reliant upon, which makes us even better able to weather difficult times. And our community is getting more and more diverse. There's 80 some languages spoken in our school system. And the county is getting more and more diverse throughout our county, which I think really adds to our strength.
Yeah. Whenever I think of Henrico, it seems like it's a great representation of the melting pot that we hear that makes America just a very awesome place to be, and where you guys are located, just north of Richmond, in terms of your demographics, the mixture from people of DC influence, plus a lot of the Southern movement that comes up. You also have all the diversity that Virginia as a state has to offer. We have mountains, we have beaches, we have cities, we have farmland. I mean, we really do have a beautiful mixture. And Henrico County is one of those places where it's right smack dead, in the right side of the 95 corridor that
Absolutely
connects the whole East Coast. And so what a unique place to be. I think you shared that when it comes to the immigration part, and I know this isn't necessarily economically related, but it goes back to the diversification part. Did you share, what was the refugee information that you shared a little while ago in terms of it being a pretty high refugee
Yeah, number two in the state behind
Sure.
Fairfax County of the number of refugees. Our community has been very welcoming to people from all walks of life. Certainly, having the Catholic Charities office here, Henrico, and the work that they do with refugee families is also a big part of that. But the county has really been very open to having folks come in from just anywhere, which, as I said earlier, we think makes us stronger.
Yeah. Anthony, since all this has, since life of COVID has kind of interrupted your guys' models and I mean, planning and everything, what was your immediate response whenever you got the news of the changes that were coming to all of us? What did you do? What did you guys decide was most important? And what action steps were taken as soon as this kind of came to reality that this was going to make life look a little different for everybody?
Yeah, the first thing we did was pick up the phone, and we started reaching out to county businesses, which we've continued to do that every day, reaching out to connect with as many businesses as we can to check in with them, see if they need anything, trying to connect them to resources. And then the second thing that we did very early on, and Henrico was one of the leaders in Virginia in this, is that our board of supervisors gave folks additional time to pay personal property and real estate taxes, gave them an additional 60 days. And then meals tax, which is paid by restaurants, and the hotel tax, which is also known as the transient occupancy tax. The board has given those businesses a 5-month extension on paying those taxes to try to help them through, because the hospitality sector, of course, with folks being asked to stay close to home, has been hardest hit. And so the thinking was that at least the taxes that they had collected up to that point, the taxes that they would collect, might help them with some liquidity through the bottom of this situation. I think in time, what we've come to realize is that talking about a recovery is really the wrong terminology, because the world will no longer be the same as it was in the first week of March.
Right.
That many things have changed just in the way that people will be interacting. It's going to have dramatic implications, we think, for the business community, a lot of which we may not even know yet, because it may still be too soon. So really our outreach has been on the phone and then through our website, henrico.com, where we're trying to post the latest information about from the health department, from the state, from the county, and other resources that would be of value to businesses.
Yeah. And honestly, Anthony, whenever you guys are picking up the phone, what are people saying? Like, what are these owners talking about whenever you're talking with them?
Well, it's tough out there for lots of businesses. Certainly it's particularly grim, as I mentioned, for the hospitality industry, for hotels, and for restaurants. But it's had a substantial impact on pretty much every business that we've talked to. Vast swaths of the retail sector are impacted by this, even stores that are able to stay open. The challenges that folks are having to meet payroll and to try to keep as many people on as they can, trying to thread the needle through the federal programs. There's a lot of money out there that the federal government has provided, but it's somewhat complex. We've been working with a number of the local banks to try to help people through that process. We announced an initiative yesterday where we made a $2 million deposit with Virginia Community Capital, which will help them underwrite some of the federal loans through the Payroll Protection Program, which hopefully the Congress will authorize additional funds for that tonight. That's expected. The House, the Senate acted on it yesterday. The House should act on it tonight. The president will sign it. At least that's what everyone is saying will happen. So hopefully that will happen. And the numbers and the assistance that folks need are massive. I mean, who would have thought a few weeks ago that a $2 trillion stimulus package was insufficient?
Right.
So there's a lot of pain to go around, I think, economically, and not to mention, just what our community is dealing with from a health standpoint. And even the folks like me who are, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm healthy, my family's healthy, and I have a job. But even the changes in our daily lives, which are becoming a real challenge. I was talking to a colleague yesterday who works for one of our local companies, and she is working from home and has a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And as if work wasn't hard enough, or being mom wasn't being hard enough, but doing that at the same time.
Yeah.
God bless her. I wish her well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that. Even before we hopped online, I told you, I was like, we have 2 sleeping children right now that at any time we can be interrupted. And it's just the reality. I feel like one thing that's been very evident is people have been pretty patient with one another through this, just in the interaction, because we're all kind of at ground zero together with this. Some of us have kids, others of us have spouses or pets or whatever that come right into the conversation at the only time the conversation is happening. So, it's really encouraging to hear that you're not only checking in on the businesses, but really the owners and the people behind the storefronts, behind the planning and complex economic parts of business that are super important. But you're really taking the time to actually check in, see how people are doing, and hear what's really going on, to make sure that they're healthy and taken care of from a medical perspective, and also just how can you guys be of service. Has it been, for you personally, Anthony, like what changes do you imagine? Do you process? You guys are a decision-making body that really helps the economic growth of a community, that then helps schools and families and everything else. I know this is, I'm not trying to jump the gun here, but as your guys, the conversations of, man, how could life look different? What ideas have come across your mind just as you spitball and really process out loud? Hey,
I think spitballing is a good term, because I don't have the crystal ball, but the things that we're talking about, Joe, that we think that may happen. Class A office space has been the bread and butter for Henrico County. Innsbrook, Reynolds Crossing, a number of really top quality office space offerings in the county. And now that many businesses and governments have determined that a good proportion of their workforce can work from home for a sustained period of time, and the internet still works. We have tested the internet in the last 6 weeks, and it's working, by all accounts, just fine. That we think is going to change the nature of offices and the office space picture. And that it would seem to me that the construction of additional office space, at least substantial new office space, is probably going to be fairly limited in the future. And I think also what we'll find would be existing office space will need to be reconfigured to adjust to the new health standards that will be coming out. There's a lot of good folks doing work in that area right now. Some of the local commercial realtors, the McKinsey folks have done some really good thinking about that. And the Virginia Chamber, I know, is working on a toolkit for businesses that will help them when they reopen. The other side to that is retail and restaurants. Henrico County's got 27 million square feet of retail and restaurants. We hope that every one of those reopens after June the 10th, but we recognize that may not be the case. And then we've also seen that bricks and mortar retail has had some real challenges recently, and the concerns over the coronavirus potentially accelerating that in a really bad way. And so I think it's going to require some tremendous creativity on the part of retailers to figure out what their future looks like. If anybody's been, in early March or late February, if you were in practically any restaurant in Richmond on a Friday or Saturday night, they were packed. It's a foodie town. There's great restaurants in Henrico and the city and throughout our entire region. And, I don't know that we're going to sit down to a meal in a restaurant in the future and have people 2 feet away from us. And, so the restaurant business is going to have to figure out, how they do that. I think the other thing, Joe, that this has really reinforced, even in a very suburban and urban community like Henrico, is that we still have a significant element of our population that either doesn't have access to the internet or can't afford it. And, some folks out in the rural areas who may not have high-speed internet, or some folks in the more suburban areas who maybe, can't work that into their family budget. And, the internet and high-speed internet is as essential now as electricity is.
Yeah.
I think that's been, one of the struggles for our school system when they had to close schools down and trying to provide, long-distance learning for all the kids. So I would imagine that there'll be some moves nationwide to ensure that everybody has access to good quality internet at a fair price, just like we do with electricity. So these are just some of the things that we're looking at. There are some opportunities for us going forward. We have a very substantial data center component in the county. We're going to see more and more of that. We knew that even before the coronavirus. I think that the greater Richmond area is poised to try to make a play for pharmaceutical manufacturing as America maybe looks to bring that back from the Far East. There's some real opportunity there. And then also in supply chain management, I mean, just in providing additional distribution, if there is more manufacturing that moves back to the United States, those things need to be stored, and they need to be manufactured and stored and distributed. And I think there's, because of our location, there's some real opportunities there for doing even more in the supply chain management area.
Yeah. Yeah. What's it been like with the projects that were already in the pipeline? I mean, are they continuing? Are you seeing that they're stalling out? Like, what's been the projects that have been underway, that maybe the ones that are currently in process? What's that looked like given the new reality?
Everybody that, I shouldn't say everybody, most of the projects that were under construction are moving forward. Projects, prospects that we were working on, we've had some that have just said they're gonna set things aside for a while and come back. And there's others that have never slowed down. I mean, activity. There's a lot of optimism out there. Activity remains, really strong. In the last, this was last week's statistic, but 3 weeks before that, there were 59 development plans filed with the county. So, wow, very, very strong, both residential and commercial. So very strong activity is continuing. So there's certainly some optimism for folks. And of course, it's April, right? And that's when everybody builds because of the weather. And so folks want to take advantage of the spring and summer to try to get things out of the ground. So I think there's definitely some optimism out there. I think there's definitely a lot of activity. I wouldn't tell you that everything is shut down, because it simply hasn't, but we are seeing some caution.
How are you guys operating as, the due process for these buildings and these, projects that are underway, like inspectors, how does an inspector leave the house to go look at a building right now? Or how does a supervisor do the task of checks and balances now and all this, just so that we know, like, oh, this is what local government's really having to wrestle with to keep the social distancing down? I gotta
give the county planning, the permits folks, the inspections folks, I got to give them a lot of credit, because they haven't missed a beat through all this. So
wow,
most of the county offices are closed to the public, but the lobby is open, and you can drop off plans in the lobby, and the staff is coming in and picking those up. Many of the plans and permits can be issued electronically, so you don't even have to physically bring them in. I mean, we've got some of our planners and building plan reviewers who are actually connecting their laptops over HDMI to their flat screen TVs at home in their family room, because they get a big screen view of the plan. So there's really a lot of creativity. The inspectors are out there. They're being very safe, very careful with what they do. But one thing that I'm really most proud about is, with respect to the entire Henrico County team, is that we were open for business. We've stayed open for business every day, and we will be open for business for the foreseeable future. So if you've got a plan, you need a permit, you can call us, you can drop plans off, you can file them electronically. And if you go to henrico.us, which is the county's website, right on the homepage, it tells you how to do all of that.
Nice. That's great. I mean, that's impressive that you guys are able to still really keep the ball rolling given the circumstances. I mean, there's some localities that don't have those resources that legitimately have stopped some, or if not all, operations. What's it been like working county? You guys have, you mentioned before that you guys have had to collaborate a little bit, and your counterparts in other areas, because you're all kind of geographically very connected.
Mhm.
What's that been like? What's it been like working with other counties, other jurisdictions, and other economic development coordinators? I mean, how's that been?
Well, it's been, I mean, we all had a very strong relationship before the virus. I think it's even stronger now. My colleagues and I, along with various folks throughout the region, have a Zoom call 3 days a week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We check in on resources, seeing what everybody needs, touch base on what the state's doing and what the federal government is doing, and what the business community needs. There's been 30, 40 of us that are together 3 days a week on those calls. What's been born out of that through the chamber, through the Great Sprint Partnership, as well as through a number of the other regional organizations, has been some webinars for the business community, some information sessions, lots of information that we put out there on the web to help people navigate whatever programs, grant opportunities that there might be. Facebook just announced some grants for the business community today. So that's been really good. And, our principal focus is helping the business community, right? And that's what we do first and foremost. But I'll tell you, those Zoom calls feel a little bit like group therapy too. They've been really good.
Yeah. Yeah. What's been the morale from leadership? I mean, just the people know, like, hey, you guys are human too. I mean, you guys have families, people have previous health concerns that were real before all this, and on top of that, a job that does require responsibility. How's morale been from the leadership?
Well, I think there's a job to be done. Everybody's on adrenaline, but I mean, I think for all of us, there's lots of work to do. It's been relentless, but we all know, and we have an abiding respect that what the nurses and doctors are doing in America today is just phenomenal. Those are the real heroes of it. I get to sit in the office in a suit and go home to my family, every night. So I'm really counting my blessings in all of this. I have vowed over the last few weeks that I will never complain about having to wait in a doctor's office ever again. Because those guys are it's just amazing what they're doing. I can't even imagine what it's like to work in a hospital or an ER these days, or in one of our local nursing homes, because there's just so much work to do, and it's truly life and death. So I think our folks know there's a job to be done. They know there's people to be cared for. There's businesses to be assisted, and that's what everybody is about. Now that we're a few weeks into this, we've had a chance to step back a little bit and start thinking about what this new tomorrow could look like, and how we can begin to prepare for that. But again, we don't have the crystal ball. We don't know, how long this virus is going to have a hold on us, and what that could mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if you were to talk to the local small business owner who maybe they don't have a retail space, maybe they do, maybe they have some employees, maybe they're sole proprietor. What's your message to them? What's your, they're in your county, they know the people there, their clients are there, their livelihood is there. What's your message to those folks?
We're really hoping that they can hang on. We're going to try to connect them with resources as best we can. I think it's been really cool to see what folks in the business community have done. I mean, the crisis has really born some creativity in how restaurants and businesses are serving people in ways that they've never had to do in the past. And I think that's really neat to see. That's not the government. That's people who are just, really smart, and they're out there trying to survive economically. And, I give them a lot of credit for trying to do that. And, you walk into a grocery store and there's somebody there who wipes down the grocery cart before you take it. I mean, it's a higher level of service, which I think the retailers know that people are expecting now because they want it to be safe when they're having that experience. So, I would say my message would be hold on and call us or reach out to us if there's anything that we can help you with. We're absolutely going to try to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I think, that's why I love what I've experienced a great man of character who cares about people. And that's really what people, I think, are really longing for, is a person that can truly come from a place of service, come from a place of authentic, care and sincere wisdom, because you guys are doing what needs to get done. You're willing to do the work so that us small business owners, I'm one of them, can really keep the doors open. And that's why I was so glad, because in this media-driven world that we live in, it's hard to really find the trusted advisor, somebody that we can really turn to. And that's why, friends, if you're not even in Anthony's, Henrico County area, Anthony's a resource, believe it or not, because he wants to be. And that's why, I invited him here, kind of thing. And for those of us that may not be in your county, what do you recommend people doing if they're, say, like we have some people viewing it from out of state? What would you say? What can they do? What can other people do? What resources would you recommend that people could start looking for information from if they're not in Henrico?
With your local government, because I think you're probably going to have the best chance to get a quick answer. And I think my colleagues here in the Richmond region, any one of them I know would say exactly what I'm saying. That they're all top-notch people, and they're doing everything that they can to take care of their business community and in their locality. But I think local governments are really on the front lines of all this, and that would be my guidance to folks on this. And if you need state or federal resources, they're probably going to be the best ones to help connect you with that, particularly if it's the SBA programs or that kind of thing. And the other thing I would say is that if your business is in line for one of those loans, really your banker is a great resource. And if you don't have an existing relationship with the bank, then there are organizations probably in your community, certainly here, organizations like Virginia Community Capital, where they will help out folks who even are not existing customers and try to work them through the system. So those community development finance institutions, CFDIs, are also great resources, and most certainly most communities of size would have those also. Yeah, the local, I always tell, one of the things that I've been very much in favor of, even before all this, was, I like to know who the local person is that's working with my money, the banker, because if they're in charge of that stuff, I want to know who they are. I want to know what's about them. And so starting there is a really great place to get some valuable information, especially when it comes to your small business. Absolutely. And the statistic I heard recently is that the Small Business Administration did, in the last 14 days, they did more loans than they did in the prior 14 years. So it's, a lot of folks are frustrated, but the system is just seeing a scale that it's never seen before. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is definitely a scale of great magnitude and everything. Anthony, what's giving you hope in all this, man? You mentioned the first responders, doctors, nurses, hospital staff. It is truly a miracle what these people have been able to do. What else has been kind of your, this is getting me out of bed, this is keeping me positive, this is giving me good vibes? What's that been like for you? What else? I think we see the creativity of the business community to stay in business. I think we see the creativity of the people that we're working with, who are figuring out how to do the job, no matter where they are. One of the things that was about 2 weeks ago, the folks in our emergency operations center came to my office, the EDA, and said, we need facial coverings, not N90, we're not asking about the N95 mask, which take, special manufacturing. We just need facial coverings, and we need about 2,000 of them. Can you help us? And so we reached out to various businesses in the county, and they came through.
Wow.
Within a week, we had over 2,000 facial coverings. UFAB, which is on Broad Street, and Jensen Leisure Furniture, which is out in Eastern Henrico, who have seamstresses on staff. They put together stopped what they were doing and put together the masks. And then one of my colleagues, her sister, actually sewed about 250 masks from North Carolina and sent them up to us. And police, and some of them have American flags, so the police really like them. The firefighters really like them. They're pretty cool. And you think about something as simple as a facial covering, and we certainly got them for the first responders, but they're using them for individuals that they may be assisting. Obviously the police have to pick people up from time to time who don't want to be picked up, and they're using the masks for those too, for their own safety as well as the safety of the citizens. And just seeing how everybody could stop what they're doing and reach out, and I have a lot of faith in our country. I have a lot of faith in America, and I think that we will absolutely get through this. And my heart just goes out to the families and the people who are dealing with this in their own homes, because this is a very, very scary sickness that people have to contend with. And so I think just seeing what our medical community can do, and what our business community can do, it really gives me a whole lot of hope in our future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking to Jessica Beal, who owns the Mix House, on Tuesday up in Caroline County, and we were talking about in the coffee world, there's been a lot of collaboration, and I told her, I was like, this is one of the best things that could possibly happen. The collaboration, between competitors and now we're seeing it, the collaboration between people and government, and businesses and government. And it's amazing. It's truly a gift that we're able to do far more things when we actually work together, and for a good greater than ourselves. It was even interesting because that's even linked to the conversation I was having with addictions and those that are wrestling with substance abuse. Part of their journey is getting the focus of a greater good, or even serving somebody else, serving your fellow man, whatever that means. But whenever that collaboration happens, that's whenever we get to truly see crazy results and really hopeful outcomes that I think inspire people to do wonderful things.
There's opportunity in every crisis, and I think we're seeing that now. And people are coming together, but just not physically, right? Mm-hmm. Watching the Virginia General Assembly yesterday, meeting in tents and sitting 6-10 feet apart. We haven't seen that in the 400 years we've had our state legislature. It's pretty, but government moves on, Virginia moves on, the nation moves on, which I think was really pretty cool to see. And we're seeing the business community do the same thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anthony, I so appreciate you, man. As we wrap up here, is there anything else you want to add? I have a little pop quiz that I know I mentioned to you, but so it's not really so much of a surprise, but you don't know what the questions are, so it kind of is. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up, my friend?
No, I just, I think you're doing good work, Joe, and I thank you. And I think, all the folks that are out there listening, and I would just say, check us out on Henrico.com. And if anybody has any needs, don't hesitate. My email is anthony@henrico.com, and don't hesitate to reach out anytime. We'll be happy to help you.
Wonderful. All right, Anthony, some goodies. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book is Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck.
Excellent. Lucky number?
12.
Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
Oof. See, I don't even like soda, so I don't know why I asked that question, really. Favorite sports team?
Yankees.
All right, there we go. What's on your nightstand? When somebody came over to your house, what would they find?
Well, they would find my cell phone and a baby monitor because we have a 2-year-old, and my Curious George from when I was 4 years old.
Oh, a classic indeed. Where was the last place you went out for dinner before we were all stuck at home?
I'm trying to remember, but it was probably the Grapevine right off of Cox Road, and
Okay.
like a really good Italian and Greek food.
Is a principle you like to live by?
I lost you there for a second, Joe. Say that again.
What's a principle or mantra that you like to live by?
I think the main principle I would say is Luke 12:48. To whom much is given, much is expected.
And on that note, my friend, we will wrap up with that because I can't top that at all. But yeah. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you very much. Friends, Anthony Romanello, he is the Economic Development Director for Henrico County. Thank you so much, Anthony, for this real talk. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your service. Thank you so much for your team that's doing wonderful things, praying that everybody continues to stay safe. Friends, if you need Anthony's assistance, if you're a small business owner, I couldn't recommend a greater friend of mine that's in local government that could really be of service and a resource to you. So reach out to him. I will type his contact information here in the chat box. But thank you so much. Love you all. Stay safe. And join us again for Real Talk with Joe later on. Thanks again, Anthony.
Take care.
See ya.